Vandy's offense is not about Diego Pavia.
You are Locked On Vandy, your daily podcast on the Vanderbilt Commodores, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
To the Locked On Vandy podcast on the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Corey Burton. Thanks for making Locked On Vandy your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube as a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by LinkedIn. These days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business. That's why LinkedIn Jobs helps find the right people for your team faster and for free. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. Terms and conditions apply. Today, we look at what the Vandyboys need to do to advance in the regionals after salvaging the series against Kentucky. AJ Hoggard, a transfer from Michigan State, is the facilitator this Vandy basketball team needs. But first, the identity of this Vandy offense is dependent on the running backs, not Diego Pavia. Therefore, Vandy's offense is not about Diego Pavia. So let me explain. Tim Beck wants to feature the quarterback run game. We know that. We've talked about that. If you've watched New Mexico State at all, and the game that you all probably did watch was when New Mexico State beat Auburn, he wants to feature the quarterback run game. Diego Pavia is a tough runner. He's a good downhill runner. Things happen. Things materialize out of the quarterback run game. But if that can't happen in this league, that won't happen in this league without the running backs, okay? If the running backs don't perform, the quarterback's run game, the RPO, the play actions, which are all pillars of this offense, it cannot work unless the running backs are solid and they perform. So one of the things that you'll see in this offense, okay, the options that you'll see, okay, you'll see inside zone read, okay, you'll see jet read or power read, if you will, which will feature the running back on the edge. So it'll feature running back outside zone, quarterback power. You'll see probably counter and what's called counter bash, which is the quarterback read game off of the counter scheme. Okay, you'll see RPOs where things will open up for the receivers based off the run game. So the quarterback won't necessarily run there. His second option will be to throw. And then you'll see also play action, which if the running backs aren't solid, linebackers and safeties won't approach the box and open up pass lanes behind them. So starting with the quarterback option game, okay? And again, it's not about Diego Pavia. We know he can run. We know he's a good downhill runner. We know he's a good leader. We know he can do a lot of good things with the football in his hands. But let's look at the cast of characters first. Let's look at the lineup first, okay, before we determine just how it's going to shake out. So right now, you have Cedric Alexander, AJ Newberry, Chase Gillespie, McKalen Young, and Johan Cardenas, who is coming in from high school, okay? So you have 5 guys right there, and you'll probably have some walk-ons as well that are getting that'll get some practice reps there, or if injuries happen, they may find themselves in the lineup. But you have to have in this offense to make this particular scheme go. You have to have 3 good options, and right now Cedric Alexander looks to be the top option. AJ Newberry looks to be the second option, and they're very, very similar in their style of play. They're shifty. They're good, patient runners that can find different creases. Chase Gillespie and McKalen Young are good, also good runners. What happens with McKalen Young is that he knows the system. He knows the scheme. He was the third back in a year ago with New Mexico State. He scored against Auburn. He scored against he had like 28 carries for 197 yards, something like that, 7 yards a carry. Not much action. They were fortunate to have healthy backs all year long. Star Thomas was just that, a star for New Mexico State. So McKalen Young didn't get a ton of time, but when he came in, he was effective. And he's the type of guy that knows the system. So looking at personnel first, I think you've got a good group of backs here that can really kind of make this thing go. All right. So Cedric Alexander and AJ Newberry, I think where they're going to thrive is they're going to thrive inside zone because they're patient. Okay. So you're going to have some zone read stuff, that zone double option or zone triple option. Okay. So you're going to have the running back run it. You're going to have Newberry or Alexander running the inside zone. And they're good patient runners. They can find creases and they can explode through them. And they're good at that. And they're good at, picking their way through. And the offensive line is going to have to communicate, obviously. Okay. And if they're good at that, defenses will have to dedicate linebackers to the box to stop that. And it'll open up things on the edge for Pavia. It really kind of stretches the field horizontally if they can draw people into the box. All right. If they can't, then they can the defense can really kind of hone in on the perimeter and really shut down what they have going on out there, whether it's a double option where they're coming down off the edge to stop Pavia, or a triple option where there's a fast screen out there that Pavia is kind of running to. And if he sees daylight, he's going to take it, or if not, he's going to flip it out there to a bubble screen or a now screen or some sort of tight end screen or something going on out there on the perimeter as kind of a third option. So none of that happens if the running backs can't get going. And of course, the offensive line comes into play here too. So don't get it twisted. The offensive line probably plays a massive part in that. But when you look at what these guys can do, they have to, like, the offensive line obviously has to create running lanes, but these guys also have to make these offensive linemen right. If the offensive linemen call for a certain combo, they have to hit the creases where the creases are, whether it's counter, power, inside zone, outside zone, whatever the case may be. These backs have to make these linemen right. Okay. And they also have to be a factor in the pass game too, because there's going to be some wrinkles here to some of these RPOs where the back is actually running a screen. Like they have a play where it's a quarterback draw or a flare screen to the running back. That also has to be a factor. So they have to be able to catch out of the backfield too. So it's a big job in this offense for the running backs. And that's why one of these guys needs to step up and be a star. I think it's going to be Cedric Alexander. I think he's going to be the dude. I think Newberry's going to be right there on his heels. I think they're going to have a nice 1-2 punch there. And McKaylin Young coming in relief there because of his knowledge of the system. And unfortunately, Chase Gillespie might be the guy left out in the cold, but that's going to be a competition that's going to happen. Even with AJ Newberry for that, I think Cedric Alexander is going to be the starter. But I think Newberry, Gillespie, and Young are going to kind of battle it out for carries opposite of Cedric Alexander, if not also getting a spot on the field as in 20 personnel or 21 personnel, where you can get two of those guys on the field at the same time if you need to. So there's a lot of different options you have. There's a lot of different things that you have with these guys. So just with the double and triple option schemes that they have, I think the running backs being good at that is going to help everything else kind of unfold, because you have some down the field RPOs that it will open up, that if they're good at running what they're running, like I think bash is something that teams like to run, where they have counter, where they have the back going opposite of the pullers, and it's kind of like an outside zone stretch play where if the defensive end rides with the pullers, the back's going to outflank them and get out in space. These backs have to be good in space. Okay. But ideally, you also have down the field RPOs. So you guys like Darian Wiley, Quincy Skinner, Jeremiah Dillon running second, third level RPOs. That can't happen if these linebackers aren't concerned with coming down to tackle these running backs, or aren't concerned with coming down and tackling, or these safeties aren't concerned with coming down and tackling Diego Pavia if it gets to that part. Okay. Diego Pavia can't do what he needs to do or Nate Johnson, whoever's in the game, can't do what they need to do if these running backs are ineffective. So that's why it's so important. That's why this offense is not necessarily about Diego Pavia. Okay. Now, obviously the quarterback's the most important position on the field. I get that. But the identity of this scheme kind of goes through the running back. Okay. It goes through the running back, because play action won't happen if these running backs aren't good. And that's those are the pillars of this scheme: RPO, play action, everything off the run. And if they can't get the run game going. They're not a team that's going to sit back, and Diego Pavia is not a quarterback that's going to sit back in the pocket and just dice you apart and pick you apart. He's not that kind of quarterback. He's the kind of quarterback that's going to take advantage of, hey, you're coming up to stop me, or you're coming up to stop Cedric Alexander, you're coming up to stop McKalen Young or AJ Newberry, whoever the back is, you're coming up to stop them. I'm going to pull this rock and throw it right by you, and there's not a daggum thing you can do about it. So that's why it's important, okay? Not because I'm trying to marginalize what Pavia does. Pavia's game is not sit in the pocket and pick you apart. It's not empty, just launch the ball over the yard down the field. It's not air raid, okay? It's not. And that's why Pavia is the perfect quarterback for this system, because he's a great complementary piece. He doesn't have to be the guy. It's more of a collective effort, and it's led by different facets. It's led by, obviously, the offensive line. Everything's led by the offensive line in every scheme. That goes without saying. But you have running backs. You're more dependent on running backs in this scheme than you are in a lot of other schemes where it's quarterback dependent always, except for schemes like this where your quarterback kind of depends on the running backs and the running backs depends on the quarterback. Like if the quarterback sucks, their part becomes more difficult. Okay, if the quarterback is ineffective running on the perimeter, or he's ineffective in reading and delivering RPOs, their part becomes more difficult, and vice versa. But their part is more. Pavia is more dependent on them being successful versus the other way around. But it all kind of ties in together, but Pavia obviously is important, but the running backs being successful is extremely important. So without them, the pillars of this scheme become way more difficult to achieve. And so they need that star guy. They need that guy to be a stud. I think Cedric Alexander can be that guy. And McKalen Young, I think in the future, whether it's the very near future or next year or the year after, can also be a star within this offense too. So they've got some things cooking over there on the offensive side of the ball. The running backs are going to be really, really good. I'm excited about that position group. But you know who else is excited? Mark Byington. He got his 6'4" combo guard that's going to lead the league in assist. He's the facilitator that this team needs. We'll talk about that commitment and what he means to the basketball team next. All right, this episode is brought to you by LinkedIn. When you're hiring for your small businesses, you want to find quality professionals that are right for the role. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help you find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. LinkedIn isn't just another job board. LinkedIn helps you hire professionals you can't find anywhere else, even those who aren't actively searching for a new job but might be open to the perfect role. In a given month, over 70% of LinkedIn users don't visit other leading job sites. So if you're not looking on LinkedIn, you're looking in the wrong place. On LinkedIn, 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. Hire professionals like a professional on LinkedIn. So LinkedIn knows that small businesses are wearing so many hats and may not have the time or resources to hire. LinkedIn is constantly finding ways to make the process easier. They even just launched a feature that helps write job descriptions, making the process even easier and quicker. 2.5 million small businesses use LinkedIn for hiring. That's a pretty big number. So post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. All right. Are you watching ESPN or Fox Sports? Are you tired of all of that shouting? Like you have to turn your TV down even? Well, make the switch to Locked On Sports Today. It's a free 24/7 sports streaming channel programmed for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all the screaming. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't-miss analysis, opinions, and news, streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. So, talking transfer portal, Mark Byington, okay, he is crushing it in the transfer portal. Okay. Thanks for making Locked On Vandy your first listen each and every day, by the way. But AJ Hoggard, transfer from Michigan State. Okay. I almost said Mississippi State. Transfer from Michigan State is, I think, for what Mark Byington does, is the perfect commitment for this offense. Okay. He's a big combo guard. He shot 40.7% from the field. He is an assist leader, recorded 5.2 assists and 3.1 rebounds per game during his last season at Michigan State. Okay, he's somebody that will come in and add instant oomph to this offense. And what I mean by that is that he is not coming in to be the primary scorer. He is coming in to facilitate. And if that means on some possessions, just do it himself, take it down the lane to the rack, then sure. But most of the time it's going to be him running the floor and finding open lanes. He's a great passer. He's a great eye for guys coming open. He has with movement, things like that. He can facilitate the ball where it needs to go. And that's what's going to be perfect for this transition offense, because it's not going to be it's not going to necessarily be him scoring. He's not going to be dependent on the score. It's going to be kind of collective here. It's truly going to be one or two passes each time down the floor. Like, you're going to come down, he's going to either drive and dish, he's going to rip it down into the lane to one of the bigger guys. He's going to take it and just move it right on up to the wing, right off the rip from half court, maybe a long baseball type pass to a wing guy like Tyler Nichols for a three. He's going to, maybe swing it around to his guy, to his guards, Grant Huffman, and those guys. But either way, or he might do a give and go with somebody and take it to the rack himself. He can do a bunch of different things. And the adjective of that best describes this program, and every program really, and what Vandy needs on any team, football, basketball, baseball, they need versatility. Okay. And this guy brings that. AJ Hoggard brings versatility. He is somebody that can do a lot of different things. He is good from all three levels. He can get to the rack, he can shoot mid-range, and he's pretty good at shooting threes as well. And so you have to look at it as, all right, I can win with that, because you get things going from defensive possessions. You get things going, you get things running, you get active with this offense. And next thing you know, like, you're putting points on the board and now you're winning, right? Now you're sitting there with a chance to kind of take momentum. You have a chance at home to get the crowd into a frenzy. And now you have a chance to win games that you shouldn't, because of the style of play. They're not overwhelming you with star power. They're not taking a collection of five guys and overwhelming you. They're overwhelming you with guys that know their role, guys that play within those roles and excel within those roles. And when you can get guys to buy in like that, you are going to be dangerous. Okay. You're going to be dangerous, and you can't, I guess, underscore that. You can't diminish that, but like, you're going to be successful in whatever you do on the court, that you're going to bring excitement to the program. Now recruits are going to come in. Now bigger fish are going to get into the boat. And then this year went from being like okay, we're just going to lick our wounds and just kind of gradually improve. And now the floor has risen a little bit. Okay. That's the expectation. Now the expectations are, and we'll talk about, we'll wrap up basketball here pretty soon. We'll put it on the shelf for a little while at least, but we'll talk about what expectations are as of right now, going into the heart of the off season. And then we'll revisit those to see if the expectations have grown, shrank, or stay the same right before the season starts. And we'll see kind of how things change, how these guys mesh, what's happening with all of this. What's going on. MJ Edwards, Mark, Devin McLaughlin, Jalen Carey, who was, I think, the first portal commit of the Mark Byington era. But it's a new team. It's a new day. It's a new way of play. Just new, and everybody's fired up about it, and you should be too. So, big, massive get here. I think that brings a little bit of credibility to Mark Byington's style of play, because I think people were skeptical of that. They were skeptical of, would positionless basketball work? And we're going to see it kind of play out. So we'll see truly if it works once we kind of get on the court. But if this transfer portal thing is any indication, I think some guys are buying in. Either they're buying into the system, they're buying into Mark Byington, or they just want to play in the SEC. Either way, we got a pretty good collection of talent here. We got a pretty good team with a lot of different moving parts. And I think it's style of play that's attracting them, because it's a running style of play. It's a scoring style of play. It's a very exciting style of play. And you're going to really kind of feature some athleticism. You're going to feature some defense. You're going to feature transition basketball here within this scheme. And I think these guys are perfect for it. I think guys like AJ Hoggard, who brings a little bit of size to his position, because the guards are a little bit smaller that we have. They're shiftier, faster, kind of more slasher type guys, steal, press you, things like that. But AJ Hoggard is kind of more of your combo guy. He's kind of more of, just not necessarily your point guard, but can be. But he's going to be a good facilitator, whether he's bringing the ball up the court or not, whether he's the first or second pass in the scheme. I think he's going to lead the league in assists. So that's going to be very exciting. So you're going to see Vandy basketball get it back into postseason conversations. But speaking of postseason conversations, the Vandyboys salvaged the series against Kentucky after two really massive beatdowns Thursday and Friday, but they salvaged it on Saturday. They got a glimmer of hope. But what's that glimmer of hope mean? How do they salvage the postseason? We'll talk about that next. We are also brought to you by FanDuel. It's winner take all time in the NBA and NHL playoffs, and FanDuel's giving you a shot to bring home a big win of your own. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. Yeah, you heard me right. That's $150 to bet on spreads, money lines, player props, parlays, whatever you want to do. You get that. But only if you visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make every playoff shot count. FanDuel is America's number one sportsbook. So welcome back. It's the third and final segment here on the Locked On Vandy podcast on the Locked On Podcast Network. Welcome back. Thanks for making us your first listen each and every day. Shout out to the everydayers. You make all of this possible. Make sure you check on Locked On SEC next. Make sure you become the most knowledgeable fan base in the country by listening to the other host of shows that we have right after this one, like Locked On Ole Miss, Locked On Auburn, Locked On LSU, Locked On Longhorns, Locked On Bama. The list goes on. Just follow the schedule. If you want to get some insight on if you want to know thy enemy, make sure you do that. So anyway, Vandyboys, they're making things interesting. Okay. It went from lots of promise to we're in a slump to, okay, maybe we got our groove back to holy cow. This may not be a slump. We may just not be that good to we still have a glimmer of hope in the postseason. You lose 4 straight series, superstars wipe you off the face of the earth in those series. Joe Caglione, Charlie Condon, those guys. They really kind of make things difficult. But Vandy has a ray of hope. Okay, they have a ray of hope. Now they're going to need to do. I think if they're one and done in the SEC tournament, it's not going to be good. They're not going to make. They're not going to make a regional. I don't think they're going to have to win a game at least, and that game is probably going to come against Florida. So that's going to be a tough one. But they've got some work to do. But they're going to have some help. Maybe it's going to be a complicated algorithm, but they're gonna sneak their way into a regional if that's the case. So first things first, Bryce Cunningham and Carter Holton are going to have to figure out how to pitch away from the Hawk. Okay, they're brilliant at home, but on the road, away from home, and maybe a neutral site will be different. But Cunningham has gotten knocked out of all 5 SEC road starts. He hasn't made it more than 5 innings. He hadn't surrendered any less than 5 runs in those outings. He's gotten pretty beat up. He went 2 2/3 on Friday. Gave up 7 runs. I mean, just got absolutely pelted. Carter Holton, not quite as bad, but not much better either. Both of those guys get run on the road. They just can't seem to pitch away from home. Something having to do with the atmosphere. I don't know what the deal is, or like the maybe the scenery, the fans. I don't know, but they're healthy and they need to bring their A game. They need to pretend. I don't know what Vandy needs to do to make Hoover Met look like the Hawkins Field, but something's going to have to happen because Carter Holton at his best, you can't hit him. When he's at home, if you're facing Carter Holton at the Hawk, you can't touch him. But you face him on the road, hitters can't wait to get to the plate against him, and they crush him. For some reason, he can't spin his curveball as good. He can't place his fastballs as well. Something happens there. So he's going to need to be more dependable if they want to have any sort of shot at going. Same with Bryce Cunningham. So they're going to have to figure out how to do that. Devin Futrell and J.D. Thompson, I think they're going to factor in as well. Devin Futrell coming back a little bit, slowly making his way in. But they're going to have to, the pitching is overall even. I mean, I'm just naming names at this point, but the pitching is going to have to find some confidence, find some energy. And J.D. Thompson actually might be that energy guy. You saw it last series against who was it against? It was against Tennessee. You saw that. And you saw him close in. But anyway, they these guys are going to need to find ways to get Jack Caglione, Hunter Hines, Charlie Condon, Ryan Waldschmidt, all of the star guys out. Okay. Now they're also going to need to figure out how to recreate the 12 runs they scored on Saturday. They need to figure that out too, because they're going to have to score a few runs and they're going to have to keep runs from crossing a plate. They're going to have to, figure out just how to hit for power, or they need to hit consistently. They just need to keep hitting, getting guys on base, walking, having smart plate approaches where you're taking pitchers deep into counts, which you're racking up pitch counts in the early innings. If you can get to these teams' bullpens quicker, a lot of times that's the secret sauce, right? And they did that against Kentucky. Calvin Hewitt, I think, had a really nice weekend. Davis Diaz is going to have to, but ever since Jaden Davis went out, things have kind of really went downhill with the offense. So they're going to have to, again, figure out a way to get around that, right? And they're going to have to figure out a way to get their bats going. So pitching is going to have to kind of get back to early season form where they were just absolutely dealing and shutting people down. But again, the batters, the hitters are going to have to. They're going to have to pitch in. They're going to have to keep some of the pressure off of this pitching. They're going to have to. They're going to have to score. They're going to have to get to the bullpens. That's the goal. Get to the other team's bullpen as quickly as possible. That's the that's the strategy. So they're going to need some help. They're going to need to help themselves. And they're going to have to just really simply, they're just going to have to play better. So that's where we're at. But before we go, quick recruiting note. Looks like they're putting some preference on offensive linemen in this recruiting class. They have some guys set for some visits in the summer. They have a new target, Matthew Parker from Jackson Prep in Mississippi. He has got a June 6th through 9th visit set to Vandy, so that's going to be fun. Some offensive line. Byron Nelson is another one that's set to visit. So maybe there's a bright future ahead for that position. We'll see. But anyway, that's going to do it for us here on this Monday edition as we approach summer like a steaming locomotive. We're getting closer and closer to not only the release of NCAA 25, but the start and kickoff of the NCAA football season, which gets underway August 31st against Virginia Tech. We'll talk more about that. We'll talk more baseball as we go, as the Vandyboys decide to meander their way through the postseason. But until then, we'll see you back here tomorrow. Thanks for listening, and we'll talk to you then. Until then, anchor down and behave yourselves. Peace.